Okay, so hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the first meeting from our new online series called Irish Literary Milestones, organized together by English Department of Adam Mickiewicz University, Honorary Consulate of Ireland, and Irish Culture Foundation. As you may remember, because I see familiar faces, last year we focused on James Joyce and his writings in the context of course, centenary of publishing Joyce this year, and a second Polish translation of Ulysses by Maciej Świerkowski. This time we want to focus on Irish literary giants, we can call it this way. So we will have a meeting dedicated to Samuel Beckett with Maciej Świerkowski, again, this time in a role of translator of Murphy, the first Polish translation. We will have a look at Siemiuszkini poetry as well. Next year, there'll be 10th anniversary of his death. William Butler Yeats, another anniversary, centenary of his Nobel Prize winning. And then we'll look at the women's writing Gothic meeting, which you are very welcome in November. I would tell a few words about this at the end of this meeting. And we are very excited because we will have two writers in December, Con Tobin and Mary Morrissey in January. So that's, I think, a great news. Have a look at our Facebook profile. All the information will be published there. It's Fundację Kultury Irlandzkiej. English department will have it on their Facebook profile as well. I will put in a chat box in a moment a special email address, which is created for the series. And in case you have any questions, just feel free to just write to us. Our meeting will be dedicated to, of course, Irish literature. We will talk about news, about different festivals. We want to do a kind of like an update for you. We will focus as well on poetry of Anthony Cronin, and Liliana will say a few words about it in a minute. But I would like us all to welcome our very special guest, Patrick Haughey, Ambassador of Ireland to Poland, newly appointed, if I'm not mistaken, 2 weeks as Irish Ambassador. So Ambassador, hello and welcome, and thank you very much that you find time to join us tonight.
Thanks very much, Justina, and good evening to everybody. It's a huge pleasure and honor to join this group this evening. As Justina said, I'm recently arrived as ambassador in Poland. So I'm just coming to the end of week 3 since I presented my credentials, so it's still all very new. But when the list of potential jobs for ambassadors came out last December, there was 26 possible countries, and Poland was by some distance my first choice. So I feel very lucky and privileged that I got my first choice. Poland's a country that I'd visited a number of times as a tourist, and I always had very good contacts with Polish people and with the Polish diplomats over the years. So it's a great pleasure to come here. Obviously, there's a huge policy agenda that we need to work through with Poland at the minute. Given the impact of the war in Ukraine, we need to talk about our support for Ukraine, and also dealing with the implications of the war, like energy and the economic crisis. But the thing I'm enjoying most about my role in Poland is building those linkages between Ireland and Poland. And that's helped by having so many Polish people in Ireland. But it's also helped by networks of people like you who have an interest in Irish culture, who have been promoting Ireland and promoting those links between our two countries. And what's really struck me in my first few months here in Poland has just been just the level of affection between the two countries, the level of interest in Ireland. It's been something that's been really inspiring for me to see, whether it's literature or music or art. There's so much affection for Ireland and Poland, and it's as ambassador, that's something that's absolutely fantastic to see.
Yeah, it will be great to work together during an online, but as well live events, because we hope that St. Patrick's Days next year will be a huge celebration. We're looking forward to that.
No, definitely after 3 years of not being able to do a full St. Patrick's Day, we really hope that next springtime we'll be back with a bang.
Yeah. Okay, so Liliana, over to you.
Yes, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Faculty of English and the School of Languages and Literatures at Mickiewicz University, let me welcome His Excellency Patrick Haughey, Irish Ambassador to Poland. I do hope that we will have a chance to host you here in Poznań in Collegium Heliodori Święcicki. And I do hope that you'll master the pronunciation of the name of our building. Vice Rector of the Adam Mickiewicz University, Professor Katarzyna Dziubalska-Kołaczyk, extends her greetings, and so does Professor Joanna Pawelczyk, Dean of the Faculty of English, who has asked me to read fragments of her letter to you. Before I do that, however, let me welcome our guests. My colleagues, our university and high school students, my phenomenal MA students, and the new head of the student club, Student Literature Club, Lovelit Club. All of you are really very welcome to, and we're very grateful for your participation in our meetings. So now, Your Excellency, we write to convey our congratulations on your appointment as the ambassador for Ireland in Poland. On behalf of all colleagues and students from the Faculty of English at Adam Mickiewicz University, I wish to extend the warmest words of welcome. As a faculty, we not only concentrate on studies of English language, literature, and linguistics, but we also have a small but active center for Celtic studies with the faculty. Our students have a keen interest in Irish culture, which we aim to support through additional courses on Irish history, culture, film, and Anglo-Irish literature and theater, in addition to our Irish language courses. We regularly organize Irish themes, seminars, and events at our faculty. We had good contact with your predecessor, Ambassador Emer O'Connell, who visited us on numerous occasions, and we would like to extend a similar open invitation to you and would be delighted to welcome you to Poznań in the near future. And then there's a part in Irish, which you will receive in the formal letter, so I will not read that. Signed, Dean of the Faculty of English, Professor Joanna Pawelczyk. As Justina said, last year we organized a series of meetings entitled Taming Ulysses, Meetings with the Context. This year's series was really inspired by these meetings, as we simply couldn't say goodbye to one another and decided to continue the encounters with Irish literature and share our fascination with Irish literature and culture. I had sent a poster advertising the new series to John Maxwell Coetzee, who through his honorary doctorate is part of the AMU academic community, and he wrote back. I hope the engagement with Irish literature goes off well. The Irish have made an extraordinary contribution to English language literature, end of quote. And that is why we do what we do and why we love it so much. So once again, and Mr. Ambassador, all of you, thank you for being with us today. And with every single meeting of the series, we will also want to bring you back the festivals from the years 2002 and 2003 with great Irish writers who visited Poznań in the past, but not only their writing, but also the spirit of congeniality and the spirit of sharing this interest in Irish literature and culture. And without further ado, now we can pass on to our questions to the new ambassador. And let me start. As a diplomat, you were working with various professional groups, including Irish corporations, as well as institutions of culture. How important is literature and history in your daily work?
Thanks very much. Well, first of all, thanks so much for the welcome, and I'm really looking forward to visiting Poznań soon and then often over the next 4 years here. But just to start, I was like the title of tonight's event, you read, you write better, is a really interesting one. And so I'm a student of economics and management. I studied economics and management at Oxford, and I'll always remember one lecture where our tutor told us about a big economic study that was done, and economists tried to work out how you could predict when a child was born, how rich that child was going to be when they grew up. And they plugged in a load of data and they looked at every possible variable. They looked at the wealth of their parents. They looked if the parents were old or young. They looked if they lived in a village or a town. And after they had assessed all the data, they only found two things that were statistically significant. One was the weight of a child when they're born, and that was a proxy for if their parents were healthy and so on. But the second thing was how many books their parents had at home. And that indicated how much their parents valued literature and education. So I think it's, as a starting point, it's like that's important to acknowledge the importance of books and literature in people's lives. As a diplomat, I think that both a knowledge of history and literature is absolutely essential to being a good diplomat. History is absolutely essential. To be a good diplomat, you have to know the other country really well. And countries are a bit like people. You can only understand them if you understand their past and their life story. If you don't understand the past of a country, you can't understand why politicians say the things they do, or you don't understand the relevance, or you don't understand why they're making certain policies. So an important part of my preparation for coming here has been learning the history of Poland. If you learn the history well enough that you can almost predict what a government will do faced with any policy decision, because you know that country inside out. But I think to really know a country, you need to know its literature and its culture as well, because the history might explain the head of, like, the mind of a country, but a literature is a way of understanding the heart of a country. While much of my preparation has focused on the facts and the history of Poland, what I'm really looking forward in discovering, like during my time here, is also the culture of Poland, the heart of the country. Próbował uczyć się język polskiego też, piękny, ale dość trudny język, but I think it's important to understand the country as well.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. My Irish is definitely not as good as your Polish, so congratulations. Okay, thank you very much. It was certainly a very, very interesting observation about the country's past that you have to know, just like the past of the people. So in that spirit, the 100th anniversary of the publication of Joyce's Ulysses, this is quite a lot of past. But this year, the Irish Literary Milestones, again, with the past, but also contemporary authors. And of course, there are so many writers that Ireland produce. So many of these writers are very, very important. So what would be your choices of Irish literary milestones? Who would be the true milestone of importance to you?
As you say, there are so many, but the one that really stands out for me is W.B. Yeats. Like, he really, partly because of the time when he lived through the birth of Ireland as a nation. But he was not only an observer and a chronicler of those crucial years, he was also an active participant in them in many ways, helping to shape the way that nation thought and felt as well. So in the late 19th century, he really was a pioneer in establishing a distinctive Irish literary tradition within the wider English literary tradition. Then in the early part of the 20th century, he played a very important role in chronicling and describing the birth of the state and those traumatic years of the War of Independence and then the Civil War. Even became an active political figure and becoming a member of the Irish Senate for several years. And I don't think you can also understate the importance of him receiving the Nobel Prize in 1923. Ireland was just a year old. It had just come through a brutal civil war. And that sense of recognition of Ireland as a state internationally was very important for the consciousness of the new state as well. When I was preparing for tonight, I was reading a lecture by our ambassador in London, Dan Mulhall, who's a huge literary expert, and he described Yeats as Ireland's Shakespeare. And I think that's a good way of looking at him. He really shaped the literary tradition and also the early values of the state. So I think he was not only a titan of a literary figure, but also quite an important national actor as well.
Mm-hmm. I love Yeats's plays, the ones with that were inspired by the Knoll plays, because that also Yeats is so Irish on the one hand, but also so international on the other, and he's really a very important figure. So we're so grateful that you were mentioning him today, because this is going to be our final meeting for the year next year. So Yeats will come back in many different ways, many different forms, and also through the translations of his poetry into Polish. So thank you very much. Did we lose Krzysztof? I hope that he is with us. No? Yes? Okay.
Yes,
So
I'm here.
now,
Welcome,
yeah.
Ambassador.
Oh, very ghostly, very Yeatsian,
very
very
ghostly,
Yeatsian.
yes. Yeah, so welcome, Ambassador. I would like to ask you about the other part of literature interest. Irish literature is also bound to the places in which it is created. Does the place you come from have any interesting writers?
Oh, thanks, Gustav. So I'm from Omagh in County Tyrone, and one of Omagh's most famous sons is Brian Friel, the great playwright. And I was speaking with my family today, and we discovered I'm actually related to Brian Friel. So Brian Friel's mother was called Mary McClune, and my mother, when she was born, was also called Mary McClune. And they're from the same McClune family in Glenties in Donegal, where Dancing at Lunasa was set. So Ireland is a very small country. I was discussing with colleagues this week. There's that idea of 6 degrees of separation. And in Ireland, we realized that we're never over 3 degrees of separation, and generally only 2. Brian Friel was a fantastic playwright, with translations, Philadelphia, Here I Come. And I remember at school studying Philadelphia, Here I Come. And it is true, it's so rooted in the place, heavy use of vernacular in the writing of it. But also, so human in his writing. You can really relate to the people, and sometimes I wonder how much that translates overseas, because to us it seems such a local production. So it's really amazing to see the worldwide impact. How much Brian Friel's plays have gone around the world, including here in Poland, and how something that seems very local and provincial to us speaks to an international audience, and people can relate to that sense of interpersonal relationships, whether they're in New York or Poland or elsewhere in the world.
If I may, just for a minute, last year we were hosting, and also he was in Poland before. I'm talking about Maurice Fitzpatrick, who was a filmmaker, and he did a documentary about translations, about Brian Friel translations. And so before we were hosting him for a meeting with my students, we saw fragments of that documentary. It's an absolutely phenomenal documentary. Maurice Fitzpatrick, in between his visits to Poland and today, did his PhD, and he's now Dr. Fitzpatrick. But the story of the one production of translations was absolutely speaking to the students who never had anything to do with Brian Friel, or his dramas. And suddenly this was the drama that really talked to them. And so Brian Friel is well received here in Poland. And I think that he's one of the most well-recognized dramatists, amongst one of the most well-recognized dramatists. And I will certainly reread the play now you've mentioned it. It's so interesting that you come from a place that produced, yes, and that you're related to possibly to Brian Friel. That's even more interesting and worth researching. So thank you very much. Back to Krzysztof for
yes. Thank you very much. Just I would like to ask you one more question and go a step further. Do you have any favorite contemporary Irish writers that you would like to recommend to our students?
Well, they may well be known to your students already, as they're quite well known. So it's nominate two writers called Barry. One, Sebastian Barry, who is very well known here in Poland, and I know he was at the Sopot Literary Festival this summer. A fantastic and well-known author. The others may be less well known in Poland. Kevin Barry. He began by writing a series of short stories, and then some excellent novels like City of Bohan and Night Boat to Tangiers. Really interesting style. Really interesting books to read. I'd recommend both of those authors.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Very Yeatsian and very ghostly.
Yeah, yeah. Our honorary vice consul is linking with us somewhere near the Baltic Sea, sitting in a car. So that's just an explanation why it looked like that. Okay,
Yes.
so that's me. Well, I'm a huge Yeats fan as well, I have to say. And Liliana was mentioning that we will finish with the event dedicated to Yeats. We celebrate his birthday each year. So we will make a huge celebration in June. Well, it will be centenary year of Nobel Prize winning as well to Yeats. So there will be definitely a huge commemoration. So you're already invited in June to Poznań again, hopefully. Yeah, Kevin Barry is known in Poland, the Nocny Prom do Tangeru. You know, the Tanger book was translated into Polish, and it is an amazing story. It is, yeah, that's really worth reading. But I would like to ask you a question which is related to something really new which happened this year. I had an opportunity to be in Krakow during this event, and I'm talking about the Hini Miłosz Poetic Residency. Can you tell more about this? Because I think this showing as well like huge connection still existing between Hini and Krakow in particular.
Yeah, so this is one of the most exciting collaborations we've got over the next year, and I was just down in Krakow last week to find out about it. So I guess the origins of this go back right back to the 1990s when Seamus Heaney visited Krakow for the first time in 1993 and developed a deep love for the city, and came back 7 times after that, including a brief period studying at the Jagiellonian University. But also developed an extremely strong friendship with Czesław Miłosz, and the two became very firm friends in their life. And when Miłosz died, the city of Krakow has preserved his apartment exactly as it was when he died in 2004. And I visited his apartment last week. It's like truly remarkable to see it as it was. And one thing we noticed was on the wall in one of the rooms is a poem that Seamus Heaney sent to him and dedicated to him. It's so nice to see that connection. So out of that came the idea, both from the city of Krakow, KBF, and also Seamus Heaney's children, Chris and Catherine. It would be nice to celebrate that enduring legacy by creating a residency program. So under this, an Irish writer will come and stay in the Miłosz apartment for between 4 and 6 weeks in autumn 2023. And the applications for that program have been open for the last few months. They closed about 2 weeks ago, and we got 29 applicants. So a jury of 3 Polish people and 3 Irish people are looking at those applications at the moment. We're very hopeful with such a strong field, we'll get an excellent writer, and it's going to be really exciting next year when they're in Krakow for those 6 weeks.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So we are looking forward to any additional events, because I know this poet or writer will be involved as well in the cultural activity in Krakow.
Yeah, definitely. We will. Once we know the person who it is, we will have to talk to them about, how else we can use their stay here in Poland, so we can think about some exciting events with them.
So definitely all of us need to have a look at Irish Embassy Facebook profile. The news will be there. Okay, so over to you, Liliana, again. So
No, Krzysztof.
No, just I would like to ask one more question about this relation between Poland and Ireland on literature background. Ambassador, you talk about Miłosz and Haughey project, but are there any special events planned by the embassy for the coming months dedicated to the literature or let's say culture connection between Poland and Ireland?
Yeah, no, so it's been a great year so far. We had the 100th anniversary of Ulysses, the new Polish translation of Ulysses. They made special events around Bloomsday. As I mentioned earlier, the Sopot Literary Festival this year had Ireland as its dedicated country. Some events coming up in the coming months. So we were really pleased that there's an Irish language film called The Quiet Girl that has been nominated as one of the contenders for the Camera Image Festival in Torun in November. So we're looking forward to meeting the director for that when he comes over to Poland, and fingers crossed that they win both that, and they've also been nominated for the best foreign language film in the Oscars in the springtime. We're all the decision on which writer has been awarded the Haughey Miłosz residency. We expect to have that before Christmas, so there'll be a big announcement around that. So as Justina said, look out for that. Then looking into early next year, around St. Bridget's Day, we always try and do some significant events around that. And the theme we're looking at for 2023 is around women creating change. So we're already giving some thought to events we can do on that theme. Then, of course, we'll have the One Dublin One Book project in the springtime. That's going to be during the month of April. And the book we've chosen for 2023 is The Coroner's Daughter by Andrew Hughes. And of course, March, of course, St. Patrick's Day, we hope to have like large and many celebrations after 3 years without it. So we'll be in touch on the plans for that. And yeah, apart from that, as in my first few months here, I'm just looking for every opportunity. I intend to visit as many cities in Poland as possible, especially Poznan, meet as many people as possible. And really, I view the work of the embassy as a catalyst and a connector, trying to look for any link possible between Poland and Ireland and promote those links. So, that's going to be my key priority over the coming months.
Thank you very much. And I think we will, I think I can say on behalf of myself and when many familiar women that I see right now at this meeting, that you will have a huge support for Bridget's Day, so we can create a team for this event. We've celebrated this year as well for the first time as a separate event, and we are looking forward to do it again, because I think it's extremely important right now, and that's what we are doing during our educational projects as well. Liliana, I'm handing over the stage to you right now with your lecture dedicated to Irish literary festivals. You will say more.
Yes, but just a very short footnote. The Quiet Girl is based on Claire Keegan's novella. And so I'm very excited and very happy that the film was made and that it's nominated for such prestigious prizes. So I didn't know that. So thank you very much. It's really a very, very good news. And yes, and we all should be crossing our fingers. Again, short forms win sometimes. Okay, let me share my screen with you now, and I'll show you a little bit about Anthony Cronin, and I think both pictures capture him as he was 20 years ago when he first came to Poznaniu. Anthony Cronin, of course, as a man of letters, is a very well recognizable persona. He studied in Blackrock College Dublin, University College Dublin at King's Inn, has a long list of things that he published. But I think one of the quotations that characterize him as a person begins his work on other writers, his memoirs of other writers, entitled Dead as Doornails. And although he was an extremely shy and humble person, he kind of had that well, he had a self-respect, but at the same time, he had a distance to himself as this great recognizable poet. And that can be seen in these two quotations when he claims quite often that he professes that my subject is not myself and my doings, but it is never any harm to establish a little circumstance. And then there goes a story of how he associated being a poet with being poor and unhappy and miserable. And instead, he became a barrister. And just look at the highlighted portion, which barristership consorted ill with the practice of the art of poetry, the necessary dooms that were attached to the calling, end of quote. He finally left the profession of the barrister and became a full-fledged writer. And in this story of other writers, Dead as Doornails, he then talks about his colleagues whom he knew and with whom he lived through really interesting times in Dublin and other places. Amongst these recognizable writers were Brendan Behan, who was Rabelais St. Jaco's knowledgeable, the victim of De Valera housing reform, Patrick Kavanagh, a great poet, primitive genius from peasant Ireland, deeply serious man with an intellect which was humorous and agile, as well as being profound and apparently incorruptible. And Brian O'Nolan, or Flann O'Brien, a small man whose appearance somehow combined elements of the priest, babyface Chicago gangster, the petty bourgeois malt drinker, and the Dublin literary gent. Now, it's only Anthony Cronin that would, with such a sense of humor, would talk about his fellow writers, but there's also a lot of respect for them. So the descriptions were to get the reader interested in the stories that he was telling, but they were never malicious. And he was always open-minded and open-hearted. The Brendan Behan comic private drama was something that Cronin mimicked after a couple of drinks in the pub. So I have an image of Cronin who remembers D.H. Lawrence, the childhood D.H. Lawrence, as presented by Brendan Behan, who is playing Brendan Behan, presenting the childhood of D.H. Lawrence. Again, there is no, there's a sense of humor in it and a great love for his fellow writers, despite quite obviously humorous content of that presentation. Now, in the life of Riley, which perhaps is a novel which could be characterized as a mixture of Joyce and Flann O'Brien, Cronin plays with the formula of the manuscript found among the late Patrick Riley's socks, rags, and papers. And the story follows indeed a fictitious poet who is unable to cope with morality and respectability, who is wandering through the nighttime city, visiting places such as Pub o' Turks, where not success but unsuccess was looked upon with favor. And that quotation should take us back to this idea that he didn't really want to be a barrister, that he thought that a poet should be poor and unhappy, because this is where good poetry comes from. Again, the kind of distance he had to himself. But as a great poet and a person who published all of these different collections, he was also, like many of his colleagues, he was a person thinking about nature in total with a kind of eco-critical smile. He writes this short poem to their new pup, whom he named Butler, and as he revealed to us, the pup was named after William Butler Yeats. The poem is longer, but of course, again, Croninian verse, I praise our pup Butler because he's ignorant of countries or continents, universe of galaxies, gods, devils, heavens, or hells. And then goes on describing the kind of happy puppy love of a very young dog. But my absolute favorite poem comes from, this is the first one in his collected poems. And this is a mixture of Gerald Manley Hopkins and Old English Wonder. And I'm going to read the whole poem because this is really absolutely beautifully, musically beautiful poem. Waverer, wanderer, weary at last of dallying days, of nights without rest. No more now the winged one so furiously soaring, the lost one uncertain in loneliness faring, the wishful, the wayward in love with the longing, with dream and with evening, the song and the singing. Oh, and don't forget William Butler Yeats, also echoes of his poetry here. He republished one of his essays in a collection of papers that I edited a long time ago. He also wrote a very substantial biography of Samuel Beckett entitled The Last Modernist. And I'm sorry, I don't know why it's upside down. And a collection of essays on Irish literature, heritage now, still valid, still interesting, with his work on the analysis of Joyce, Patrick Kavanagh, and Samuel Beckett, as well as others. And now, as a man of Poznań, this is back to the festivals. This is the first of the Irish Literature Festivals in Poznań. In 2002, we published a collection of translations from Cronin, from Anne Haverty, and Dermot Healy. There were 2 days of the festival. Before the 2 days, we also met privately. This is Dermot Healy and his wife, our friend, our men in Ireland, Martin Dolan, and of course Cronin and Haverty. There was also a Fulbright professor, Steve Wright, who participated with the festival, and he was with us during this meeting. The second literature festival in 2003, again, Cronin returned, but this time with Leland Bardwell and Paul Darkin. It was a great occasion because his sonnet sequence, The End of the Modern World, was translated by Ernest Brill. And this was also published just before the festival. So we were celebrating this translation as well as, of course, the writers who came together with Cronin. So here is just before a day before the festival begins with Leland Bardwell and Paul Darkin. I love that picture. I'm going to talk about it in December a little bit more, because when Cronin was reading from his work, Paul Darkin was writing a poem about Cronin reading from his work. And this is here Paul Darkin, who is writing that said poem. Before the second day of the festival, Ernest Brill came over, and he also participated in the meeting with the writers. Here he's welcomed by former rector, Professor Bronisław Marciniak. Ernest Brill was also a poet and a former Polish ambassador to in Ireland. This is from the collection of Irish Literature Foundation, and I want you to notice the blackboard here. Normally, this is a formal occasion. You read poetry, you discuss it, and then in the background of the two poets, you don't have the mentioning of what feet the poet was using or what important metaphors were used by the translator and the poet, but there's a sign that where we're meeting after the reading of poetry in a pub in Młyńska. And this is the said pub, and of course Anthony Cronin again happy with the translation and with the visit. In 2004, Anthony Cronin received a Medal of Merit of the Adam Mickiewicz University. This was a very formal occasion. The Ambassador Thelma Doran joined Cronin. This is the former rector Stanisław Lorenz. He is forever in the annals of Adam Mickiewicz University. He signed his name in a very important book, and here we are celebrating with Anthony Cronin. This is the current vice rector who hosts the portrait of Cronin today. I'll show you the picture in a second. Of course, my archivist predilections always make me keep various pictures and various things. He was presenting this collected poems to us at that meeting, and of course the celebrations were long and very joyous. This is Ambassador Thelma Doran and Professor of Translation Studies, Professor Alicja Pisarska. Signed menu again, my archivist the archivist in me. This was also a historical occasion because the Bucharest in that particular location no longer exists, but in those days, 20 years ago, we did have a number of meetings, readings of writers that we invited, and the cooperation was quite interesting. We cooperated for quite some time. Here you see that the edition, the Polish edition of Cronin's The Sonnets is displayed. Cronin's poetry was inspirational to a painter, a Polish painter. The embassy was a patron of that exhibition. Joanna Haracz painted a number of paintings inspired by the poems from the end of the modern world. Excursions, New Writers Press anthology, double language, Polish and English, with translations from Cronin's poetry. And finally, this is where Cronin resides today. This is the place that Ambassador Haughey will be able to visit. There's a large portrait which was donated by a Poznań painter, Antoni Walerich, and it was presented to the university by Martin Dolan. So Cronin is with us forever and ever, and he was and is part of our university life. And that's it from me.
Okay, that's nice to go back to this history, though I prefer my haircut right now than 20 years ago, I have to admit. I have a great memory from those times, because we organized exactly in this place where I'm right now, a party. Krzysztof, you remember that, with Anne Haverty, Anthony Crane, Dermot Healy. We had some wine and food and discussion about literature, etc. At some stage, the singing started, and they choose "She Moved Through the Fair," which is one of my favorites, Irish song. And after a couple of minutes, there was a huge discussion about the verses, the lines, is it correct or not? Then the other discussion was, I think, about the recipe for Irish stew. Should you add this or that? And it was great memory. Then we changed for a nearby pub, which is not existing anymore. It was a very long, extremely exciting literary night. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this, remembering the Irish festivals in Poznań, because this is something which is history right now, and it's nice to look at the pictures. And we were just chatting that, you know, many of those people are not with us anymore. So I think it's important to remember them, their life and works during the series. So each time during this meeting, during Irish Literary Milestones, we will talk a bit about festivals and show pictures and discuss the writers. You can send all questions by chat box. I did not mention that at the beginning, so please do so. And so I'm taking over right now, Diana, from the start, so I will maybe unpin you. Okay. We've decided to do as well kind of like a summary for all of you, and show you what's new, what are the new translations, or what are we planning around literature. So I'm just gonna maybe share my screen right now. I'm not sure why it looks like this. Just if you can just let me. Okay, so let's do this one. I hope it will be okay.
Pokaż slajdów.
Yeah, okay. I'm not sure. Okay, it should be okay right now.
Yes.
Okay, so we just said a few words about our program for Irish Literary Milestones. You are very welcome in November. On 24th of November, I will be discussing Bram Stoker's Dracula and Sheridan's Le Fanu short stories, Oscar Wilde's Portrait of Dorian Gray. We will be joined, Viliana, by two amazing students from her English department who will add their own knowledge about those books. So I'm really looking forward to that. We've done this week special pictures to the poster. So make sure to keep an eye on Irish Culture Foundation Facebook profile. As we mentioned already, this series is a result of last year's one. Well, we've started in October, we finished in June with the live meeting this year. Taming Joyce, Oswajanie Joyce'a organized in the context, as I mentioned, of the centenary of publishing Ulysses and Maciej Świerkowski translation. We have a special playlist on our YouTube channel, Fundacja Kultury Irlandzkiej. You can have a look at all those recordings. I think we can say honestly that we had a really good time around creating the program, in meeting all those really competent people who specialized in Irish literature, and James Joyce in particular, like Professor Katarzyna Bazalnik from Jagiellonian University, and Professor Leszek Drąg, who is with us tonight, sharing with us very interesting story about Joyce and Galway in Joyce writings. Professor Jerzy Jarniewicz, the winner of this year's Nika Literary Award. Maciej Świerkowski, of course, a Joyce translator. We had as well a guest from Ireland, Liz Gillis, historian. She specialized in Irish War of Independence, well, this period, and Irish Civil War, and women's role in the whole movement. And the last meeting was dedicated to Joyce and European cities, and we've met two translators, Italian Joyce translator and Professor Enrico Terinoni and Professor Fiona Nir-Jordan from Sorbonne. It was very, very entertaining meeting, I have to say. So make sure to have a look at the films that are available on our YouTube channel. All of those meetings were prepared with a thought that they should be available for someone with zero knowledge about Joyce and his writings. You will find on our YouTube channel as well recordings of two Bloomsday events. Ambasador mentioned one in Teatr Polski in Warsaw.
Ale ona jest spokojna, ona
możemy prosić o wyciszenie mikrofonu? Ktoś ma mikrofon uruchomiony? Przepraszam bardzo, zobaczę tylko, kogo muszę wyciszyć.
Sterylizowana już? Sterylizowana.
Okay. Strange conversation. Surrealistyczne. So going back to our remembering Bloomsday. So you will find recording of Bloomsday from Teatr Polski on our YouTube channel as well, and discussion and conversation between Maciej Świerkowski, Jerzy Jarniewicz, and Piotr Paziński. So the best possible team of Joyce specialists. I think what is interesting in this Bloomsday event is that theater prepared a short scenes from Ulysses that are extremely well played by the actors. So make sure to have a look at this. And there's a recording as well of the Bloomsday organized as the last meeting of Taming Joyce from Raczyński Library. That was a conversation with Maciej Świerkowski. I add additional picture, as you can see above, of Maciej Świerkowski receiving Bernard O'Connor Prize in the gardens of Irish residence of Irish Embassy residence in Warsaw. Okay, so let me see when this stops. Sorry. Okay. In June, we had a chance to see a great spectacle in Teatr Polski in Poznań, Ulysses, directed by Maja Kleczewska. Those of you who know Maja Kleczewska works, you know what you can expect. It was extremely exciting and thrilling and interesting and unique. Quite often the viewers are part of the spectacle. Teatr Polski will have its stage in November again, so if you are in Poznań, make sure to come. For us, I think it was a symbolic ending, like of our series, and we had a really good time all around the spectacle. Three books that Foundation supported financially in publication: Ulysses, of course, Łódź Ulyssesa, and a poetry book of Irish poet Eleni Pulinen, I've managed to pronounce it more or less properly, in translation of Jerzy Jarniewicz. We have a library and foundation, so in case you are interested in have a look at looking at this book or maybe reading the poems, just let us know. Ambassador mentioned as well One Dublin, One Book. This year we were involved in promoting, of course, this event, but I had the pleasure of hosting the event with Nuala O'Connor, author of amazing book Nora, dedicated to Nora Barnacle, Joy's partner, long partner, and then his wife. And Ambassador already mentioned the new book chosen. It's Andrew Hughes, The Coroner's Daughter. Make sure to have a look at Embassy Facebook profile, Zielono mi Ambasada Irlandii w Polsce. There will be more details how to join the clubs of One Dublin, One Book. I know we have some of our schools participating in tonight's meeting, and they already had a chance to take part in this project. Liliana mentioned Claire Keegan and her well, she was shortlisted to Booker Prize this year, but as a result of this, we have her Polish translation of Small Things Like This, Drobiazgi takie jak te, in translation of Krzysztof Cieślik, which was published by Wydawnictwo Czarne. This is really new thing, so you can buy it to someone for a Christmas gift, for example. Poetry, again, new translations. William Butler Yeats, that might be interesting for Ambassador, in translation of Jolanta Kozak, Marta Kuszewska, and Krzysztof Puławski. As I mentioned, I like Yeats very much, and I think, as most of us, we are stuck and we are, well, sometimes get used to translations that we read over and over again, and there are somewhere in our head. Those are very fresh. So I highly recommend reading them, and well, this is something completely new. I will not say anymore. And a new translation as well of poetry, John Dean, Kości Słony Wód. This is his first poetry book published in Polish. Ambassador mentioned as well Literacki Sopot. You can find recordings of meetings with the writers on Facebook, on the YouTube channel of Literacki Sopot. There were meetings with Emer McBride, Lucy Caldwell, Sebastian Barry, Emily Pine. Really, it was really exciting to meet all those writers. And as you can see, new translations, the first translations of Emer McBride's novel, it's Lesser Bohemians in English, Pomniejsi Wędrowcy, Coś nie tak, Kobiecość I Wstręt, very, well, painful in a way, but very interesting feminism essay, and Lucy Caldwell's short stories, Intymności. Alongside with Irish Literary Milestones, there will be a series called Irish Talkathon. I know we have amazing students from English department with us. Would you like to say a few words about that?
Yeah, so just give me a second. I will try to show myself. Okay, so maybe I will, good evening to everyone. I would like to introduce our new project. We would like to organize a few meetings. They would probably take place once a month, like we would approximately plan to do this once a month. And we would like to engage people to discuss books, movies, everything what is connected with Irish culture in general. So we wouldn't like these meetings to resemble any kind of lectures. We wouldn't like people to devote a lot of time to prepare for it. We would like to just share our ideas, our feelings about Irish culture, literature, movies, etc. So this is kind of a new idea. We will see how it goes. Of course, we hope that it will go pretty well, and I hope that we will be able to meet at least 5 or 6 times, and we will have the better idea how to organize it next year. because we, of course, hope that we will continue this next year as well. Yeah, so right now we are full of ideas, and we are looking forward to our first meeting, which should take place at the end of November. And we will talk about Toybin and his short stories. Yeah, so if somebody is interested in joining us, we already set up our Facebook page, and there you can enroll via email or via questionnaire, if I remember correctly. There is also Agata here, and she is kind of my cooperator in this project. So maybe you, Agata, you would like to add a few words about our project?
Yes, hello everybody. I think you said pretty much everything, Carolina, and I just want to welcome you all to our Irish Talkathon, and everybody is more than welcome to participate and to share their opinions about the books. As Carolina has mentioned, we will talk about Colm Toybin's stories in our first meeting, so I'm super excited for that. And we're looking forward to meeting you all there.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm just gonna add myself again. Yeah, I highly recommend that as well to high school students too. That's I think a very it will be very friendly place to discuss, as you heard, books and films and general interests. So I'm looking forward to that as well. And Carolina and Marta, who is with us as well, will run with us this special November Gothic meeting, which I'm really looking forward to that. It will be definitely interesting. Okay, I ask our participants, I'm not sure why this presentation is not going. Just give me a second. Oh, okay. During the registration process, I ask our participants to send a title of the book read at this very moment. I know probably most of us have so-called piles of shame, stosy wstydu, the books that are just growing and growing next to our beds, desks, tables, etc., that we just don't have time to read. But a few recommendations. I'm really happy that students who are with us from high schools send their recommendations as well. You can have a look, maybe do some notes from those titles. There are a lot of Irish ones. I see Nora by Nuala O'Connor. So we have Colm Toybin, of course, which we'll discuss in December. Okay, so that will be all from myself. I'm just gonna stop this sharing at this moment, and we have some question. We have a question too. Okay, so I assume this is a question to Ambassador from Marta Grabowska, is that right? Yeah, okay. If I may, I would like to know, according to you, if there is any topic considering Poland and Ireland which has yet to be described by writers. I'm going to pin Ambassador to this.
It's an excellent question, but I think that one of the beauties of history is that we're constantly creating it and living through it. And I think the last 20 years have created a whole new period in the history between Poland and Ireland. You know, after Poland joined the EU, we saw like tens, if not hundreds of thousands of Polish people coming and living in Ireland. So that has created a whole new set of experiences and a whole new set of connections. And I'm not, at this point, I'm not aware of any literature exploring that experience of the Polish community in Ireland. And so I'm sure that's something that we will see in the years to come, people reflecting on that experience and those connections.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Okay, we have a recommendation from Sylvia Barnett. I sincerely recommend The Colony by Audrey McGee. Yeah, well, that's on the reading list as well for I think many of us.
It was shortlisted for the Booker Prize, as far as I remember. So yes,
Yes, it was.
It's an interesting book. From I haven't read it, but it sounds really, really interesting, and it's on my pile of shame right now. Yes.
Yeah, we should do maybe we'll do a pictures. We'll ask people to do a pictures of their piles
of shame. Yeah, that's a very good idea.
We'll see who's the tallest ones. Yeah, do you, Liliana, do you remember any book that will share this experience? I remember the Malinsky by Siofra O'Donovan. I think that's a book that's kind of like linking, but that's the story built around the Second World War, I think. And one brother is, the brothers are separated. One is living in Poland, and then the other one is living in Ireland. It's a beautiful book.
And of course, Siofra O'Donovan was our guest 2 years ago, so yes, so that's a good recommendation. Malinsky by Siofra O'Donovan. I'm just going to write it down for everybody if anyone is interested.
We have it in our library as well, so in case, just let me know. We are sending
actually
books.
This book was published in English in Ireland, and also as a Polish translation, so it is still available to buy, for example, at the library. Somebody will ask.
Yeah. Okay, do we have any other questions? Okay, I'm sharing the email address of created for this project. So in case of any questions, just let us know. And next week, probably we will publish our Gothic poster for our meeting on 24th. I think the best picture right now, it's Marta one's. You have to make, you have to teach us how to do pictures like that. I want to know that. So maybe I just thought about the small competition for the 24th for our Gothic meeting. So you are invited to dress up, and we will think about some prizes for the best costume.
The scariest costume.
For the scariest costume. Okay, we don't have any more questions. I'm gonna pin Krzysztof again. Krzysztof's got a very good Gothic costume right now, so you can get a prize.
Well, actually, I'm just in a costume that's live, you know. I'm really look so terrible now, actually, because it's so dark around.
Thank you so much. We are really excited for this new series and for discovering and other writers. Well, like giants, as I said at the beginning, but we learn all the time, having great guests and great speakers from all over Poland. So I'm looking forward to that myself. And thank you very much, Ambassador, for your time. And thank you very much to everyone joining us on this Friday evening. And I'm going to just pass maybe to Liliana and Krzysztof, you want to say a few words, but huge thank you from myself.
Well, I just would like to thank you all, and I really look forward for next meetings. And I would like to assure you that the Honorary Consulate in Poznań will be all the time with you. So we support all such events, and I think the embassy will do the same as did before. So Patrick, fingers crossed for next meetings together on these meetings. Thank you.
Yes, well, thank you all of our students, my colleagues, and of course our guest of honor. We would really love to see you in Poznań in the live meeting, but that will be devoted to other things than literature. And today, thank you for your insights in and sharing with us what you your favorite writers whom you consider Irish literary milestones, and of course all the events and all the various planned special events that the embassy is going to participate in. This is something that we are all looking forward to, and we're glad to have you with us, and we're excited to work with the embassy. You have a great team. We've been loving them for quite some time already. They were very supportive, and so now with your presence, of course, we simply hope to continue our endeavors in a similar fashion. So thank you from on my part, and to all of you. Good evening.
Okay, let me just quickly say a huge thank you to Justina, Liliana, and Krzysztof for convening this event this evening, and indeed for all that you do to support and promote Irish culture here in Poland over many years. It's, you know, for me coming as an ambassador, it's really inspiring to see all the work you do. And I agree, I have inherited a great team at the embassy, and we're going to continue that collaboration. And I look forward to meeting as many of you as possible, and I look forward to a visit to Poznan in the very near future. Thanks so much for this evening.